Okay, so like everyone, I'm sure you've heard about Emily Pike, right?
It's hard not to. This case is everywhere.
It's just so awful. A young girl goes missing, and then, we find out what happened, and it all seems to be happening so fast.
Right. Like every day there's something new.
Yeah, new information, protests, just a lot to unpack.
Mm.
And that's what we're going to try to do today.
A deep dive into the case, try to make some sense of it all.
Exactly. And we're going to be using this YouTube video by Sarah Turney to help guide us,
She's really become a strong voice for missing persons,
especially those involved with the foster care system.
which tragically is where Emily's story comes in.
Right. So just to set the scene, Emily was 14 years old. She disappeared from her group home in Mesa, Arizona on January 27th.
And then on Valentine's Day, they found her remains.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah. And what really brought this case to national attention, I think, was that leaked memo from the Gila County Sheriff's Office.
The one that ended up on Facebook.
Yeah. It had some pretty disturbing details about the state of her remains, and it kind of blew the whole thing wide open.
Honestly, I felt like that leak, even though it might have been, not the most ethical thing,
Sure.
I felt like it needed to happen.
Well, it definitely got people talking.
Right. It raised awareness in a way that I don't think would have happened otherwise.
I think that's a fair point. Leaked information, there are always ethical considerations there.
Of course.
But it definitely put Emily's case in the spotlight.
And that spotlight has revealed a lot of troubling details. Like in Turney's video, she talks about some of the speculation surrounding Emily's disappearance.
Like the idea that she left to meet a boy.
Yeah. And that maybe something happened to her on her way back to the San Carlos Apache Reservation.
Right. But it's crucial to remember that this is speculation.
Totally.
We can't jump to conclusions while the investigation is still going on.
Agreed. But the public reaction, though, that's really saying something. Turney mentions these demonstrations that are happening, like, almost daily here in Arizona.
People demanding justice for Emily.
Exactly. It seems like everyone is just outraged and heartbroken by what happened to her.
Yeah. And I think it goes deeper than just this one case.
What do you mean?
Well, Emily's story is bringing up a lot of larger issues about how we as a society protect vulnerable youth.
Especially those in the foster care system.
Exactly. There's a lot of anger and grief, but also fear. People are worried about what this says about the system. Are we doing enough?
Are we failing these kids?
Yeah. And I think Sarah Turney really helps us understand all of this.
She's dedicated her life to advocating for missing children, and particularly those who have come from the foster care system.
Right. And her podcast, Voices for Justice, it really gives a platform to families who feel like they haven't been heard.
Who feel like their loved ones have been forgotten.
Yeah. Her insights are just so valuable in a case like this.
So, where does that leave us? What have we learned from Emily Pike's story?
Well, I think one of the biggest takeaways for me is just how vulnerable these kids in group homes are. And it raises questions about the systems that are supposed to be protecting them.
Like, are they really doing their job?
That's the question we have to ask. And I think this case also forces us to look at how we respond to these tragedies as a society.
Do we demand answers?
Yeah. Do we demand transparency and accountability?
Do we do everything we can to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Exactly. Because ultimately, Emily's story deserves our attention and our empathy, and most importantly, our commitment to making things better.
Absolutely. It's a story that should stay with us. And thank you all for joining us for this really difficult but important deep dive into Emily Pike's case.
Thank you for listening to Justice for the Souls podcast.